Always do sober what you do drunk. That'll teach you to keep your mouth shut.
Hemingway said that.
Yes, he did. And he said it to me.
I don't want you to go to Canada tomorrow.
It's for the podcast. It's what I do. I travel around and I interview weird or interesting people.
So look out, you crazy Canucks!
Wandering Wallace takes a raunchy road trip up to the Great White North.
Hello. I'm an old man who has enjoyed a long and storied life at sea. And after eons of oceanic adventure, I know I do not wish to spend my remaining years alone when I have such stories to share.
How far is Bifrost from here?
It's about 2 hours from here.
It's about 2 hours away.
I hate American guys.
Okay, if you guys were going to categorize, tell me what type of film this is, what type of movie is it?
It's in the walrus genre.
There you go.
It's under W at your Blockbuster. It's been hard to categorize it without using hyphens because it's clearly got tons of comedy in it. And some of the horror stuff is kind of funny to sick people like us. But it does get into that classic, I think, gory horror sort of thing that true genre aficionados will appreciate, even if the whole movie has wonderful side quests off into other things, along the way.
A newfound appreciation for sea life.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Walruses are awesome. They're G's.
They are.
Of the ocean.
They can be a maternal kind of presence. They can look after you if you're a shipwrecked sailor or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotta know, when you're filming these scenes with Justin, you see him in the suit and the whole thing. I mean, are you looking around and you're like, is going on here? I mean, how do you I know it's your job, right? But it's got to be a little strange.
Yes.
Tell me about what that was like when you first saw him and he's screaming.
He's your movie boyfriend. He's
Yeah.
probably meant more to you.
Okay. I was a bit traumatized. I saw him in his facial getup, and he was in a leotard under.
Yeah.
So it was just odd in its own.
And Kevin described it as that inside the suit is kind of like being on those big, the inflatable ball with the handle that you bounce around with as a kid.
Oh God,
and
that's awful.
he's so great in it because it's basically just the eyes that he has to
Yes.
communicate with, and he does that because getting in the suit. What was cool is that we didn't see him very much, so the shock was kind of real the few times that we did see him. We just saw pieces of walruses kind of going
over the
around
set.
that the creature makeup team was doing.
A tusk here, a tusk there.
Yeah, a lot of some human heads sewed onto a hide. It was disturbing. Yeah.
Very.
The first thing I have to ask you from watching this is, do you need a hug?
I'm gonna say no, but I'm gonna mean yes.
How do you come out of working on something like this and...
Wait, are you not gonna give me a hug? Gee, you can't offer something like that and deliver. Thank you. I did need that. Thank you. I don't know. You come out of it, you think, I hope that's not as ridiculous and potentially career damaging as it could be. That's all you think.
So was there a moment when you're making this and you're in the suit and you're like, this might be my last movie?
I actually always think that. Walrus suit or not, I always think this could be it, and it actually helps, really embrace whatever it is that I'm doing. I just always think the acting police are gonna realize that I've been doing this too long and shouldn't have been doing it at all, and a lot of self-esteem issues. But on this particular one, weirdly enough, when I was in that walrus suit, I actually had the opposite thought. I remember thinking sometimes God, if this all comes together the way it feels, it could be really special. I mean, or it could be a disaster. But either way, it's going to be an experience. And that's why I do things now, just for the experience of it. I've never been very good at having any forethought about how this will affect me and the career and all that. And maybe I should. Maybe I should be better about trying to predict the next move and what to do. But I always think well, is this experience going to be rewarding? And it definitely was.
Good evening.
It's nice to meet you.
Could I interest you in some tea?
So what happened after the boat sank?
I was alone, and then something very swift and frightening moved by me.
A walrus saved your life?
The walrus is far more evolved than any man I've heard of. Present company included.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you? Would you?
There. It'll be all right, Mr. Tusk.
He hasn't called me in 3 days. I'm worried.
Why are you doing this?
Are you really mourning your humanity? I don't understand. Who in the hell would want to be human?
What the hell is going on in that head of yours?
Yeah, honestly, this is a scary thought, but this has been going on in my head since long before I made Clerks, because this was the movie I grew up watching. When we were kids in the back on the East Coast, New Jersey, we get a New York feed for our television. And New York on ABC, the local affiliate of ABC, they would run what they called the 4:30 movie. Started at 4:30, ended at 6 o'clock. It would take me decades to figure out, boy, they cut a lot out of that movie to make it work into that window. But those are the movies I grew up watching. And they would, this is long before streaming, kids, and even before the video store. So they would do things like Nature Gone Awry Week, where they'd show you like Grizzly and The Swarm and Food of the Gods and stuff like that. Or Apes Week, where they showed every Planet of the Apes movie, or Godzilla Week. So those are the movies I loved. And as I got older, we first got cable TV in my neck of the woods. First thing they littered cable TV with was rubber and slasher movies, like, rubber monster movies, slasher flicks. So those are the flicks that I grew up watching and loving. Like, as a cineast, I love David Cronenberg, I love David Lynch, the Coen brothers. I didn't like movies like Clerks and Mallrats and Chasing Amy because they didn't exist. I had to make that crap. But this stuff, this Tusk, this is what's been in my head and heart since I was a kid. The currency of what we call a fucked up movie. Like when you were kids, you wouldn't be like 4 stars, 2 thumbs up. You'd be like, "Did you see this movie? It's fucked up." And you'd be like, "Here, watch it." And you pass it to somebody off, and they'd be like, "This fucked up," and they'd give it to their friend. So that was
Stop
the best.
swearing. Stop
Sorry,
swearing.
my bad. Effed up. That's the best thing you could say. Like, to translate to somebody else, like, this must be watched. And it's going into this, I was like, if we're going to do it, make that movie you grew up wanting to see.
Is there kind of an overall message here about the human psyche? I mean, because it is shocking and scary, but there is some kind of deeper meaning here.
I hope so. I thought there was always that potential when I first read the script, and I talked to Kevin about maybe exploring that potential a little bit more. And to me, it always felt like, again, at the risk of sounding pretentious, it always felt like it could be an examination about a man who's lost his humanity and regains it only by becoming an animal, if that makes any sense. And you see the movie and you think, well, this guy is gone. I mean, in the beginning of the movie, he lacks any compassion, and he talks about crying. He can't cry, it's for babies, whatever. He hasn't really shown any emotion, and then there's something about Howard Howe, Michael Park's character, who is kind of the opposite. He's like, even though he's psychotic and he has deranged thoughts, there's something very compassionate about him, and he's the ultimate animal lover. I always, whether or not, people who say, I'm not crazy about dogs or animals, that's always a litmus test for, I think, somebody's human being's level of compassion. Somebody who can anyone who can abuse a dog or do anything like that to an animal, any kind of animal, is it speaks volumes about who they are. And Michael's character is he loves he loves animals too much.
Take me through the makeup process. How long did that take?
So they start with the prosthetics on my face alone, and that was like 3.5 hours. They got it down to about 3.5 hours, and then they would put on a cowl, and that was 10-15 minutes, and then they would shove me into the suit, which was a big latex. And then they would just snap it on, and then they popped the tusks on after I got my head through the hole. They were magnetic tusks. Really ingenious design by Robert Kurtzman, who we were so lucky to have. And the whole thing took about 4.5 hours, And then, but coming over and touching up, and it was a real process. Yeah, it was fun though. I mean, God, it was fun until I realized I'd have to do it several days in a row.
You scared the shit out of me.
Good. Thank you. What a nice compliment.
Thank you so
With
much.
because of the mustache. Right?
The mustache, the porn stash.
Yeah,
Canadian
it's terrifying.
side. What scares you these days? What scares you?
Sharks and driving.
It's really dangerous, isn't it?
It is.
It's very dangerous.
I am very scared to drive.
Yeah.
What scares you?
Ebola is starting to worry me. Yeah, that I decided to read The Hot Zone recently, and that's a book that has an ending written in 1994 that was like, and then we solved the outbreak and it was over, so to speak, and now it's back. So yeah, it's just another thing about the way the world is so connected now, and that can be wonderful, but also things that may have stayed in far-flung areas of the world can now come right to your doorstep within a few plane flights. So
Nice.
hopefully they get a handle on it. A lot of brave people working there right now. So.
Well, this movie scared me, so.
Good.
That's what's
I'm so glad.
So you've been very outspoken about the studio system and how hard it is to make a movie these days. Could this movie have been made in the studio system, A? And why is it so hard to make a movie these days?
It's not hard, it's just expensive. What I was bitching about a few years ago was the cost of marketing, which I found exorbitant, particularly for a low-budget filmmaker. If you're going to make The Avengers 2, you know you're going to spend at least $100 million marketing it, because you're globally doing that. If you're going to make Clerks 2, and that only costs $5 million to make, and you spend $10 million to market it, something's wrong with that system. So these cats I hooked up with, A24, these distributors, first off, the financiers Demarest, they're the ones that gave us the money, so thank God somebody's got poor taste there. But A24, the studio that's putting it out, does it so smartly, man. Like, all the marketing is done in a very clever way. Like, they were like, would you mind if we branded some strains of weed to your movie? I'm like, are you kidding me? I could smoke Tusk. This would be amazing. So, like, they're really smart. This couldn't be done in a studio system, though, because it's a tough sell on paper. You're like, it's a movie about a guy who turns another guy into a walrus. And we went at one point. We were talking to Jason Blum, who does all the Blumhouse movies, and he was way into the idea, but he has an output deal with Universal. And he gave him the script, and he came back, and he was like, dude, Universal yelled at me about your movie. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, so we're going to need a star. And I was like, I don't believe in star. I think the star of this movie is the concept, and let's just get the right actors. So we agreed to go separate ways. So I did. I mean, I didn't go in through a studio front door, but I got a view of this movie from the studio point of view, and it was not favorable. They were like, why? Why would anyone do this? So that's why it can't be made. Studios have to make tentpole movies that guarantee upwards of $50 to $100 million in returns. This movie, on paper, probably reads like the worst investment of all time. They're like, are you kidding me? But it's a movie that, like, with enough people going like, I would like to see that, suddenly you wind up with Tusk.
It was fucked up and I loved it.
Thank you so much.
I'm so scared. This guy wants to turn me into an animal or something.